What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another video. Today we are taking a look at oil catch cans. What do they do? How much do they cost? Do you need one? And how do you hook one up? So a lot of you guys have seen my previous videos, and I recently installed one of these on my 2010 Jeep Wrangler. I didn't really cover the install, but a lot of you guys were curious not only on how to set it up, but what do they do? So in this video, we're gonna go over all the basics of oil catch cans and kind of dive right on in. So since I already have one installed on my JK, we're gonna be using my 2020 Jeep Gladiator today for this install. But the great thing is that the basics still apply to pretty much every other vehicle. Every modern engine is gonna have a PCV system. We're gonna talk about that and kind of why you'd want to install an oil catch can on your Jeep or any vehicle. If you wanna hook this up on your mom's Honda Civic, go ahead. So let's dive right on into the video. Let's get started. So first things first, let's talk real quick about what a PCV system is. What does the oil catch can do and why would you need one? I am not gonna bore you guys to death with a bunch of engineering knowledge. We're gonna keep this very, very simple. So first off, what is a PCV system? What does PCV stand for? PCV stands for positive crankcase ventilation. Now, in modern engines, really any engine, you have cylinders and piston rings. This is not a Jeep engine. This is an LS engine that's going in Cassie's Jeep Wrangler, but it is a great example to kind of show you guys and talk about right here. But underneath our heads, inside of our block, there are pistons that move up and down. Now, sometimes those piston rings have blow-by, which means a little bit of air kind of pushes in there and it can pressurize our crankcase. The crankcase is down under here, and that is not a good thing. Now, in the past, way back before the 70s, they would just vent that pressure out into the atmosphere. No big deal. Then, bunch of standards came in, bunch of regulations and emission codes that said, hey, maybe we shouldn't be pumping out like kind of this oily mist into our atmosphere. That's not good. So they came up with a new design called the PVC, or a way to kind of get that pressurized gas, oil, air mixture out of the engine and recirculate it back through the intake to get reburned inside of our engine. So most of you guys have heard of a Pcv valve. It's usually somewhere on your engine. In this case, right there. And then a hose goes from that and back into your intake. Sometimes it's right on the intake manifold. Sometimes it's right in the middle of your intake tube. It just depends on the engine and the make and model of your car. What this does is the air going in through your intake is gonna draw a vacuum. It's gonna suck that crankcase gas and pull it into the air. It uses a little Venturi effect to draw a vacuum so our crankcase is no longer pressurized. But what does that mean? Why is that bad? That oil air mix is going into our intake. It's gonna clog up and kind of build up inside of our intake manifold. Not only that, it's gonna build up inside of our heads on the little head runners and on the intake valves themselves. I'm gonna insert a clip right here, and this is what kind of got me started on installing a very cheap catch can on my Jeeps. Once Cassie and I were opening up this engine, kind of cleaning it up for the rebuild, there was so much crud, not only in the heads, but the intake manifold all over. It was disgusting. And that kind of got me thinking, maybe we should try to prevent this on our Jeep Wranglers. So now that we know that is not exactly good for the engine, how do we prevent that? And that is what a catch can is for. It's very, very simple. It's a way to stop and kind of separate that oil from the air while still meeting and passing emissions. We're just collecting the oil in the catch can instead of recirculating it through the engine. Here we have the oil catch can, dun dun dun. As you can tell, we have an in and an out. And inside this, we're gonna open it up later, but there's baffles that catch the oil, allowing the air to continue and pass through. So we're still removing the pressure from the crankcase, but we're getting rid of that thin oil mist and preventing it from going into our intake. So these engines are designed to kind of recirculate this. It is not necessarily, installing a catch can, we're not gonna get more power, we're not gonna get better fuel economy, but we are going to really clean up the inside of our engine. There's no reason to have oil in there. Yes, the manufacturers did account for it, but by no means is this going to hurt anything. There's no reason not to. So I know a lot of you guys are wondering, do I need one? You'll be fine without it, but it's definitely gonna help keep your engine a little bit cleaner over time. Now, the second question is, why in the world didn't manufacturers install these if it would actually keep the engine cleaner? And that's very, very simple, guys. The fact that it's an added piece of maintenance. Every once in a while, these are gonna fill up with oil. You're gonna have to unscrew it, you're gonna have to drain it. A lot of companies try to make engines and new vehicles as maintenance-free as possible. So that's really what it boils down to. It's another piece, you know, it's another piece of equipment that would have to be inspected. You'd have to drain it, all that stuff. But for guys like us who have Jeeps and don't mind a little bit of maintenance to make it a little bit better, it's a no-brainer. Let's go check out the JK that I did and show you that setup.
You installed a new catch can yet?
Yes. Are you off work?
Yeah.
You are?
Finally done.
Whoop, whoop. All right, I think I just rambled to them for about 5 minutes. Typical Ben. All right, so let's take a look at the setup I have on the JK. Dun, dun, dun. Very, very simple, guys. Once again, this is a DIY solution, which means there is no vehicle-specific bracket, but this thing works. In the last video, I probably had around 1,000 miles since I've installed this, and let me show you the clip of how much oil this thing caught. There we go.
Oh,
Can
yeah.
you see it on the screen?
I don't know, but there's some oil in there for sure.
Can you see it? There we go.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yes. Ah,
that is a
delicious.
good amount of oil. I need a rag now. All right, guys. So as you can tell, that's a decent amount of oil that would normally recirculate right back into our intake manifold. So here we go. The original hose came from here and went right there. All I did was cut the hose, use a few adapters, bought some new hose, and route it right over to our cheap catch can. It's as easy as that. Now, right now, I still have to make a bracket. It's kind of sitting in here with a zip tie kind of holding it in place. Don't judge me. I'm gonna eventually make a bracket, but it is not going anywhere right now. So the great thing about your DIY catch cans, or what I'm about to show you, is that they're incredibly cheap. I think this one was around 20 bucks. The one I'm doing now is about 27. And I'd recommend the one that I bought for the Gladiator. It's a little bit nicer, but for 27 bucks, you can't beat it. So that's that setup. Very, very simple to install. We're gonna show you right now on the Jeep Gladiator. Let's do it. We already know that we have an inlet and an outlet to run in line of our PCV system. We're gonna open this up to kind of see what magic is in here to make this thing work. So we know that air comes in, inside. You can see that baffle right there, can you?
Yes.
That baffle is gonna help the oil, it's the oil and air mixture, it's very, very fine mist, is gonna hit this and the oil is gonna kind of build up back into a liquid and drop down into our catch can. Now, the reason I like this one, not only because it's 27 bucks, which is awesome, the fact that it has a little dipstick on top. We can simply pop our dipstick and say, oh, it's full, or oh, it's not full. First thing we have to do is remove this engine cover to actually get access to all the stuff on this Jeep Gladiator. Now on the 3.6 liter engine, our PCV hose goes down over there across our intake and right here. We have this fancy little clip and our little nub right here. So since this is a DIY option, we're gonna cut this and make it ourselves. That's one benefit to the ones you buy. They come with the new hoses with these factory style clips. Really depends what you want to do, but we're gonna cut this baby in half and hook up our catch can. Now that we have this cut, we would measure what size hose we need. It's important to make sure that we go with a bigger hose that fits over this. We don't want to reduce the diameter by shoving a tinier hose inside this. In this case, 5/8 heater hose is going to work perfectly fine. Now in this Amazon $27 catch can kit, we got the catch can, this random hose, which is not gonna work, and a bunch of fittings for different size hoses. In our case, we're gonna be using the biggest one, which is right here, and of course, some thread tape. We're gonna put some thread tape on these and thread them into our catch can. Now that we have these installed and we know what size hose it's gonna fit, our next step would be figuring out where we wanna mount our oil catch can. It's important to make sure that we mount this somewhere where we can still unscrew the base and have room to remove it and dump the oil. So I think I'm gonna have to make a little special bracket. For video purposes, we're not gonna do that because that sounds extremely boring. But what I would do is probably mount it right here. There's a stud right here. I could make a little L bracket and tie it into the two holes here and probably mount it right there. Still giving me enough room to drop it down. Won't hit the brake booster, but that's where it's gonna go. But for now, we're just gonna zip tie it here for the video purposes, and who knows, knowing me, it's gonna be like that for, it's gonna be like that for years. I mean, if it works, it works, you know what I'm saying? But we now have to grab our hose and figure out the routing. So the spot on our intake manifold is going to go to the out on our catch can, Because remember, outside of the catch can is the clean air going into the intake, and going into the catch can is going to be the dirty air. So what I'm gonna do is plug this right back in. We're gonna have to get a little creative with this routing. There we go. See, there's a bend in this. Just kind of twirled it around. We're gonna plug this right back in and figure out how we wanna route this. I gotta be careful because I don't want this plastic tab to break. Kind of route it that way. Right around there should be pretty good. I don't like that at all. Design plan number 2. Bring it around this way. My length is gonna be about right here. Make the cut, stick it on the out. Of course, we are gonna hose clamp all these, but start off with a little dry fit. We kind of want to avoid any crazy bends or angles. We don't want any spots where this hose can kink up and prevent airflow. So right here is a good spot. Now we have to figure out how to get it from over here to over here. We're gonna snake that on. Very, very similar path to our inlet. Just like that. Let's get these hose clamps on. Probably call this thing done. And just like that, our oil catch can is installed. I still have to make the mounting bracket, but I think I'm gonna show you guys that in the next video whenever we come back and see what kind of results we are getting on the Gladiator with the catch can. I know for the JK 1000 miles, we had something. I'm curious if we're gonna get the same result with a newer, fresher engine. So now it's time to talk about a little bit more about what a catch can does in regards to these newer Jeeps. A lot of you have probably seen some of these Jeeps, whether it's the JK with the 3.6, the JL, or the JT. On very steep inclines, the engine starts smoking like crazy. And that's just due to where the PCV system is on the engine. It actually sucks up some of that oil and sends it through the intake and starts burning that oil. Catch cans will solve that issue, but your catch can will kind of fill up a little quick. So it's important to make sure that we're checking our catch can fairly often, at least until you kind of get an idea of how fast they do fill up. Typically, once every oil change, you open it up, check it, pour it out, you're good to go. Do not pour the oil back into your engine because a lot of the times it is diluted with fuel. A little bit of unburnt fuel will get in here too and mix with that oil, and you do not want that inside your engine because fuel is not good for your bearings. But very, very simple install for 27 bucks plus a roll of heater hose for like 5 bucks. We are close to $30 for this install. Not bad at all. For those of you who are looking for something that's plug and play, no cutting, it's gonna come with a bracket. I'll throw some links in the video description for you guys. But this is a very, very simple install. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and once again, I will see you guys later. You got anything? You're just over there loving on Max.
See you later.
Loving on Max. Max, say bye-bye. Nothing?
Next.
All right, guys. Should we do a giveaway for one?
For Max?
No, for the catch can. There we go, let's do it. So
Yeah, give away a oil can.
we'll do it if you're still here watching. If you are interested in winning this exact same setup, DIY setup, go down to the comments and say, just leave a comment. Leave a comment and you will be entered. I mean, leave something like, hey, I'd like to be entered or something. And I'll go through everybody and pick a random winner and announce it in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. See you later.